downtown Seattle following riots that happened last night. But it's important to note the day started with several peaceful protests, including one led by the nonprofit. Not this time. This morning, I'm joined by the event organizer, Andre Taylor. Andre, good morning to you.
Morning.
Yeah, first, let's talk about your rally yesterday. Your group marched from Westlake Center to the federal courthouse. Tell us about the message that you were really trying to send and get across.
The message that we were successful at getting across is that when you bring all people together and when all people have something on one accord, which is their pain, their agony, we created a space to allow people to release their frustrations from the George Floyd situation, a space for people to cry, a space for people to yell, but in a peaceful protest, right? So I was very happy out of the tens of thousands of people that came and marched with us. There was not one incidence of any violence. And out of all the things that was going on and all the distractions and all the lights and all that stuff, the message got across. And the fact that we were able to march successfully without an incident showed me that people got the message.
What did you think about all the riots and looting that happened down there? Of course, you said you were able to get that message across successfully, but obviously those riots and looting kind of interrupting parts of that message, do you think, or what was your opinion on what happened there?
Not at all. Not at all.
Okay.
So when you have neo-Nazis and the anarchists coming, it's something that they do all the time. It's not an exotic situation. It's not rare. We know who they are. We know what they do all the time. And we know that they say they're going to come. So my responsibility is to the people that came to protest and that came to heal and came to be together. That's my responsibility. Now, when somebody else acts out outside of that and they become outliers outside of what we're here for, then law enforcement will deal with that. That's not my responsibility. And so law enforcement had to deal with that. So there's a concerted effort all over the country with neo-Nazi groups, white supremacist groups, to use opportunities of our pain to come and create and start destructions. So that's been going on. So that's nothing new. So it's important for me to have leadership and to stay focused on the winning, what we have used to win before with Initiative 940. I don't want to be distracted from what I know wins to what is going on outside of that, because then there's nobody leading anymore. So it's very important to stay focused on leadership and stay focused on giving the people a plan of what we do next. Because see, that stuff will happen, the highlights and all that, it'll die down. It never manifests and never produces anything every time they do it. What produces something is the narrative that Not This Time has had, that have led Washington State in becoming the first and only state with a police accountability law. So we need to stay focused on our narratives, focus on reminding Seattleites and Washingtonians who they are, that we are leading this nation, and we must continue to show that leadership and don't be distracted by what's going on outside of us. We cannot be easily distracted. We must keep leading the rest of the country and building upon what we have won with.
And you mentioned this just a while ago, focusing on what's next. What is next for you all? Are you planning to get back out there to do another rally or protest in the near future?
Absolutely not. We plan on building on the inquest process, making sure that this city is not up underneath, that they can't get away from the consent decree. Even though the mayor and I have a great relationship, I consider her a friend, and also Carmen Best, we have a great relationship, but I'm not one to believe that I have to agree with somebody 100% of the time in order to build with them. So we build what we can. But where I disagree with them, I have to speak to that, and I have to speak to the community why that's something that we have to push out against. So we need to continue to build on police accountability. Right now, we're in the implementation stage of that. Implementation of police accountability is just as important as passing the law. And that has taken a great process. And when COVID-19 came, it stopped our ending process to make sure that we can put things in law where we can have bite, right? So unless it's implemented, you don't have no bite of the law. So that's where we're at, and continuing to build upon that, continue to encourage leadership from the governor on down to make sure when there is an incidence of violence that there's not talk, that there are officers that are not only charged, but they are convicted. And unless there is some type of example, of that, unless it starts somewhere that officers are being held to accountability like the rest of the public, then this will continue to happen.
Right, and I know your focus is on those peaceful protests and getting that message across. Do you have any words for the people who are being destructive out there, tearing up downtown Seattle?
Well, because I know who they are. I think that, I had a message to our white allies yesterday, and gave them an assignment to utilize their white privilege and their power and their genius and their status to infiltrate your own people, right? And to hold your own people accountable, right? So if there are white supremacists and neo-Nazis and anarchists out there creating this drama, we know who they are. Again, they've done this and they do this all the time, right? They do it all the time. So it's time for white people to hold them to account, right? I must hold my own people to account, but you must do the work too. So it's the responsibility of white people to infiltrate that is going on and to bring that to a heel, right? So that's what I have to say about those rioters. Again, I don't want to be distracted by what they're doing. I want to keep with the winning message, right? I would be a fool to be distracted from the winning message, right? Of bringing black, brown, straight, gay, Latino or whatever, people together as we did with Initiative 940, be distracted from what wins to that foolishness that only lasts for a minute and then it dies down and people forget about it. It never accomplishes anything but a distraction.
Andre
So,
Taylor.
Go ahead.
No, thank you so much. I was going to say thank you for those points. We are so glad to have you here joining us this morning, and think you added some valuable perspective to this conversation. So thank you again, and we'll be reaching out soon to have another conversation about this in the near future. All right?
Appreciate you.
All right. Thank you as well. We want to send things back over to Grace Lim right now with another check on that forecast.